"Why didn't you fix it?" my CEO asked, soaked, shaking, standing in my doorway at midnight. I looked at her and said, "I tried. It wasn't enough." Because one ignored warning had already set everything in motion, and someone inside the company wanted it to fail. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, have you ever had a warning no one listened to? And where are you watching from? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real emotional stories. Let's begin. My name is Ethan Cole. I fix things most people never notice: valves behind walls, pressure systems under floors, the quiet mechanics that keep buildings alive. I chose this kind of work after I walked away from corporate engineering years ago. It's simpler. Honest. At least, I thought it was. The night everything changed, my boss showed up at my door barefoot in the rain. It was a Saturday. I was in my garage, sanding down an old oak cabinet I'd salvaged from a curb. The radio hummed low, rain hammered the roof, and for a while, the world made sense: wood, tools, silence. Then someone knocked. Not politely. Not casually. Urgently. I opened the door, and there she was. Victoria Hayes. CEO. Controlled. Untouchable. Except not tonight. Her hair was soaked, mascara faintly smeared beneath her eyes, her silk blouse clinging to her shoulders. One heel was broken. The other, gone. She looked straight at me and said, with a shaky half-smile, "I know how this looks, Ethan, but can I come in before I ruin your floor too?" That was the first crack in the image I had of her. I stepped aside. She moved past me quickly, leaving wet footprints across the hardwood like she was afraid she might collapse if she stopped. I shut the door, sealing out the storm, and the silence inside felt heavy, like something had already gone wrong and just hadn't caught up with us yet. "Bathrooms down the hall," I said. "Clean towels. I'll find you something dry." She paused, just for a second. "The office is gone," she said quietly. "My floor. The archives. Everything." Then she disappeared down the hallway. I stood there, listening to the faucet turn on, and felt that familiar pressure settle in my chest, the kind that shows up when a problem isn't random. 3 months ago, I filed a report about the building's fire suppression system. Microfractures in the valve housing. Pressure inconsistencies. Nothing dramatic yet, but enough to matter. I sent it up. No response. I sent another. Still nothing. By the third time, I stopped expecting anyone to listen. But systems like that don't fail quietly forever. I put the kettle on and leaned against the counter, staring at the rain streaking the window. When you've seen what negligence can do, you don't forget it. My father died because someone ignored a warning like mine. Ever since, I don't let things slide, not even when no one's paying attention. 10 minutes later, Victoria came back. She was wearing my flannel shirt, sleeves hanging past her hands, and a pair of sweatpants tied tight at the waist. Without the suit, without the sharp edges, she didn't look smaller. She looked real. She sat down at the table and wrapped both hands around the mug I gave her, like she was holding onto something steady for the first time all night. "The sprinklers didn't just fail," she said. Every head on the executive floor went off at once. I nodded slowly. "That's not a malfunction." Her eyes lifted. Focused now. Sharp again. "How do you know?" "Because I warned about it." The words landed between us like a dropped tool. "I filed reports," I continued. "Pressure instability. Structural stress in the assembly. If that valve gave out, this is exactly what would happen." Her face changed. Not panic. Not disbelief. Calculation. "I never saw anything," she said. "I sent it to operations," I replied. Martin Shaw. The silence that followed wasn't confusion. It was realization. Someone hadn't just made a mistake. Someone had buried it. Victoria set the mug down slowly, her fingers still trembling, but not from the cold anymore. If what you're saying is true, she said quietly, then this wasn't an accident. I met her eyes. No, I said. It wasn't. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. Inside, something much worse had already started. And for reasons I didn't fully understand yet, she hadn't gone to her lawyers, or her board, or anyone else. She came to me. Which meant whatever was coming next. I was already part of it. Victoria didn't panic. That's the first thing I noticed after the truth settled between us. Most people would have started calling lawyers, blaming departments, trying to outrun the problem. She didn't. She sat there for a long 10 seconds, staring at the table, then lifted her head like she'd already decided something. What do we do? She asked. Not what happened. Not who's responsible. What do we do? That was the moment I stopped seeing her as just my boss. You have about 36 hours, I said. Before insurance opens an investigation. Her jaw tightened. And the first thing they'll ask for is maintenance records. She didn't need me to finish. If those reports don't exist in the official files, she said slowly, then it looks like we ignored the problem. Exactly, I said. And if they find the damage pattern without documentation, your policy gets denied. Worst case, cancelled. 40 people. Jobs. Contracts. Everything. Gone because someone decided a repair wasn't worth the paperwork. Victoria exhaled slowly, then reached for her phone, but stopped halfway. No, she said. Not yet. She looked at me again, but this time there was no distance left in her eyes. Can you prove it? She asked. I stood up, walked to my garage, and came back with a black case. I set it on the table and opened it. Inside, drives, backups, printed logs. I keep parallel records, I said. Everything I submit. Timestamps, photos, signatures. The day no one responded to my second report. I stopped trusting the system. She stared at the case like it was oxygen. Ethan, she said quietly, why are you still working in maintenance? I shrugged. Because I got tired of rooms where no one listens until something breaks. That one hit. She nodded once, then straightened. Okay, she said. Then we don't wait. I felt something shift in the room. Decision. I need access to the building tonight, I said. Before anyone else gets in and starts controlling the narrative. You'll have it, she replied instantly. And you, I added, need to document everything from your side. Right now. A formal report, time-stamped, sent to your attorney and insurance before midnight. She didn't argue. Didn't hesitate. She moved. Laptop open. Fingers flying across the keyboard. Focused, precise, controlled again, but different now. Not distant. Present. While she wrote, I grabbed my jacket and tools. Ethan, she said suddenly. I stopped. Be careful. It wasn't authority. It was concern. I nodded once and stepped out into the rain. The building looked dead. No lights. No movement. Just dark glass reflecting the storm back at itself. I used her access code and stepped inside. The smell hit first, wet insulation, soaked drywall, metal and minerals where they shouldn't be. The kind of smell that tells you something important just failed. The second floor was worse. Ceiling tiles had collapsed in heavy, sagging sheets. Water pooled across the floor, reflecting broken lights in distorted shapes. Victoria's office, what was left of it, looked like a war zone. Papers dissolved into pulp. Screens black. Years of work reduced to silence. But I didn't stop. I went straight to the mechanical room. And there it was. The valve housing, split clean along the weld seam. Exactly where I said it would fail. Not random. Not sudden. I crouched down, running my fingers just above the fracture line, not touching, just confirming. Pressure stress. Long term. Ignored. I took photos. Close-ups. Wide angles. Serial numbers. Every detail that couldn't be argued later. Then I went to the server room backup system, what little still worked, and pulled every log I had ever filed. Emails. Reports. Attachments. Proof. When I stepped back outside, the rain had softened. But something else hadn't. Because as I stood there under the dim emergency light, one thought settled in hard and clear. This wasn't just negligence. Someone had made sure no one listened. When I got back to the house, Victoria was still at the table. Same position. Same focus. But when she looked up at me, I saw it. She already knew. I placed the drive in front of her. It's worse than we thought, I said. She nodded slowly. Then we don't just fix it, she replied. Her voice was steady now. We expose it. And in that moment, this stopped being about a broken system. And became a fight. Victoria didn't sleep. I knew that before she even said it. When I walked into the kitchen at 5:30 a.m., she was still at the table, same posture, same focus, but something in her had changed. Not tension. Clarity. A full report sat on her screen. Legal language. Timelines. Names. Everything documented, sent, and time-stamped before midnight, just like we needed. You got everything out? She asked. I set the drive on the table. Photos. Logs. Server backups. The fracture is exactly where I documented it. She nodded once, absorbing it like data, not emotion. Then Martin's finished, she said. I didn't answer right away. Because something about this still didn't sit right. He's not going down quietly, I said. People like him never do. Victoria looked at me, and for a second, I saw something sharper than anger. You think I don't know that? She said quietly. That told me everything. This wasn't her first fight. We drove downtown just after sunrise. The storm had passed, leaving the city too clean, like nothing had happened. But I could still smell it, wet concrete, damp steel, that quiet aftermath buildings carry when they've taken a hit. Victoria sat beside me in the truck, back in her world, black blazer, white blouse, hair pulled tight. If I hadn't seen her the night before, I never would have believed she'd stood barefoot in my hallway asking for help. Board presentations at 9, she said. Wexford contract. I glanced at her. You still planning to walk in there like nothing happened? Yes. No hesitation. Because if we don't win that contract, she continued, we lose leverage. And right now, I need every advantage I can get. That was the second thing I understood about her. She didn't just survive pressure. She used it. The conference room was already full when we walked in. 3 other firms. Full teams. Polished presentations. Perfect board set up like they'd been rehearsing for weeks. Victoria and I had one tablet. That was it. I caught a few looks as we took our place. Judging. Curious. Dismissing. Didn't matter. When her turn came, she didn't even sit. She stood at the front of the room and started speaking. No slides. No notes. She built that building from memory. Every hallway. Every load-bearing wall. Every detail laid out like she was walking them through something already real. And for the first time, I saw what she actually was. Not just a CEO. A builder. Then she looked at me. Ethan Cole, she said, will walk you through the structural framework. I stood up. And for the first time in years, I stepped back into the version of myself I thought I left behind. Numbers came easy. Systems always did. Load paths. Stress distribution. Mechanical efficiency. I answered every question before they finished asking it. Not because I was trying to impress them. Because I knew it. Because I had lived inside that building's bones for 3 years. When we finished, the room went quiet. 3 seconds. 4. Then the board chair leaned back slowly. That, he said, was the most precise structural presentation we've seen in over a decade. Victoria didn't smile. She just nodded. We build to last, she said. We. Outside, the air felt different. Lighter. Victoria exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for days. We did it, she said. You did it, I corrected. She looked at me. No, she said quietly. We did. Then her phone buzzed. She checked the screen, and everything changed. What? I asked. Her expression hardened. Martin, she said. Company-wide email. I felt my chest tighten. What did he say? She turned the phone toward me. Flood caused by maintenance failure. Full internal review recommended. I let out a slow breath. There it was. His move. He's trying to bury it, I said. No, Victoria replied, already dialing. He's trying to bury you. That hit differently. Not the company. Me. She stepped aside, her voice sharp and controlled as she spoke to her attorney. Send everything, she said. Now. Full package. Direct to insurance and to Martin Shaw. She ended the call and looked back at me. Let him read his own mistake. We didn't have to wait long. 15 minutes later, her phone rang again. She answered. Listened. Then closed her eyes for a brief second. When she opened them, it was over. Insurance reclassified the incident, she said. Negligence. On him. I nodded slowly. And Martin? She met my eyes. Terminated. Just like that. One decision. One truth. One man's entire career, gone. But as we stood there on the steps, something still sat wrong with me. Because this had been too clean. Too fast. Too calculated. I looked at Victoria. You ever wonder, I said quietly, if Martin was the only one who knew? She didn't answer right away. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't finished. Not even close. Because sometimes, the person who takes the fall is just the one standing closest to the edge. Martin Shaw was gone by noon. Escorted out. Badge taken. Office cleared before most of the staff even understood what had happened. By the time rumors started moving through the building, the official version was already in place: negligence, failure to act, terminated effective immediately. Clean. Too clean. I was back in the building that afternoon, walking the same hallway that had been underwater less than 24 hours ago. Industrial fans roared, pulling moisture out of the walls. The smell hadn't left yet. It never does, not right away. Damage lingers, even after the surface looks fine. That's something people don't understand. Victoria found me near the mechanical room. He's out, she said. I heard. She crossed her arms, watching the workers move past us. This should feel like a win, she added. It doesn't? I asked. She shook her head slightly. No, she said. It feels incomplete. I nodded. Because it is. Most people stop digging once they find someone to blame. I don't. Because systems don't just fail from one bad decision. Not like this. Not over months. Not with this many missed chances to fix it. I stepped into the mechanical room again, shining my light along the fractured housing. Same split. Same stress line. But now that I wasn't rushing, I noticed something I hadn't before. The bolts. 2 of them had been replaced recently. Different wear. Cleaner threads. That shouldn't have happened. Victoria, I called. She stepped closer. What? I pointed. These bolts are new. She frowned. So nobody logs a repair like that without documentation. Not in a system this critical. Her expression changed. You're saying someone was here. I'm saying someone touched this system, and didn't want it recorded. The silence stretched between us. Then she said, very quietly. Martin. I shook my head. No, I said. This isn't his style. How would you know? I hesitated. Because this was the part of my past I didn't like bringing into the present. Because I used to work with people like him, I said. And people above him. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Ethan. I didn't just leave corporate because I was tired, I continued. I left because I saw what happens when numbers matter more than safety. I met her gaze. My father died in a system just like this one. And afterward. I spent 6 years in consulting, helping companies avoid disasters like that. And, she asked. And sometimes, I said, they didn't want to avoid them. They just wanted them to look like accidents. That landed hard. Victoria turned away for a moment, processing it. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. Who above Martin would benefit from this? I didn't answer right away. Because I already had a bad feeling about it. Who signed off on the last quarterly maintenance audit? I asked instead. She didn't need to check. Board oversight, she said. Final approval comes through the finance committee. And who leads that committee? She looked at me. And I saw it hit her. Daniel Reeves, she said. Her voice was steady. But something underneath it wasn't. That name meant something to her. I could see it. Not just professionally. Personally. What is it? I asked. She exhaled slowly. He's been with the company since the beginning, she said. Investor. Advisor. Practically built the financial side of this firm. That doesn't answer the question. She looked at me again, this time without the CEO mask. He's the one who convinced me to delay system upgrades last year, she said. Budget reallocation. Temporary hold. There it was. Not negligence. A decision. A choice. Did he know about the reports? I asked. Her silence was enough. We stood there in the low hum of drying equipment, the weight of it settling in. Martin Shaw wasn't the architect of this. He was just the one holding the shovel. Victoria, I said quietly, if this goes where I think it goes, this isn't just about your company anymore. She straightened. No hesitation this time. Then we don't stop, she said. Her voice was calm. Certain. We finish it. But as we walked out of that mechanical room, I couldn't shake one thought. Because I'd seen this pattern before. And it never started with money alone. It started with pressure. Deadlines. Deals. Secrets. And people willing to bend the truth just enough to keep everything standing. Until something broke. And when it did, they made sure someone else was there to take the fall. This time, it was Martin. Before that, it almost was me. And if we were right about Daniel Reeves, then this wasn't over. Not even close. Because now, we weren't just fixing a failure. We were walking straight into the part of the system that was designed never to be seen. By the time we said Daniel Reeves's name out loud, the story had already changed. This wasn't about a broken valve anymore. It was about a decision made months ago, one that quietly traded safety for numbers and trusted no one would ever look closely enough to prove it. But we did. Victoria didn't confront him immediately. That surprised me. "What are you waiting for?" I asked as we stood in her office, the temporary one, 2 floors below the damage. She was looking out the window, arms crossed. "For him to think he's safe," she said. I nodded slowly. That was something I understood. We spent the next 2 days building the case the same way we built everything else. Carefully. Precisely. No noise. No assumptions. Just proof. I mapped the system failure timeline down to the second, pressure logs, fracture progression, mechanical stress points. Every detail aligned with what I had reported months earlier. Victoria pulled financial records. Budget shifts. Delayed approvals. Emails that didn't say much, until you read them next to everything else. And there it was. A quiet decision to postpone a $1,400 repair, during a quarter where margins needed to look stronger. 1 line item. 1 delay. 40 lives hanging off it. The board meeting was scheduled for Thursday morning. Daniel Reeves sat at the head of the table when we walked in. Gray suit. Calm expression. The kind of man who had spent decades making decisions other people had to live with. He smiled when he saw Victoria. "Good to see you recovered from the weekend," he said. She didn't smile back. "Let's begin," she replied. I stood beside her as she spoke. No slides. No theatrics. Just truth. She walked them through the failure. The reports. The timeline. Then she handed it to me. I laid out the system. Explained the fracture. The ignored warnings. The replaced bolts. That got their attention. Then Victoria placed the final piece on the table. The financial approval records. Daniel's signature. The room went quiet. Not confused. Not shocked. Just, still. Daniel didn't react at first. He leaned back slightly, hands folded, studying us like we were a problem he hadn't expected to solve today. "This is a stretch," he said calmly. "You're connecting maintenance issues to financial decisions without direct causation." Victoria met his eyes. "You told me to delay the upgrade," she said. "I advised a temporary hold," he corrected. "And you signed the audit clearance," she added. He didn't answer that. I stepped forward. "The system didn't fail randomly," I said. "It failed exactly where it was documented to fail. The only reason it wasn't fixed, is because someone chose not to act." Silence. Then one of the board members spoke. "Daniel, did you review the full maintenance reports before signing?" For the first time, he hesitated. That was enough. The decision didn't come immediately. But it came. Daniel Reeves stepped down by the end of the week. Quietly. No headlines. No public statement beyond leadership restructuring. That's how people like him leave. Not with noise. With absence. A week later, the building was alive again. Clean walls. Repaired systems. Everything functioning the way it should have from the start. I was back in my garage that evening, finishing the cabinet I'd started before all of this. Victoria showed up again. This time, she knocked once. Calm. Steady. When I opened the door, she wasn't soaked or shaken. She was certain. "The board approved the restructuring," she said. "Operations. Engineering oversight. I need someone who actually understands what's behind the walls. I leaned against the frame. You offering me a job? I'm offering you a partnership, she said. That landed differently. Not authority. Respect. I looked back at the cabinet. Smooth surface. Solid joints. Something built right after being almost thrown away. Then I looked at her. At everything we just stood through. You know, I said slowly, most people would have handled this very differently. I'm not most people, she replied. I smiled slightly. No, I said. You're not. I stepped aside. Come in. That was 4 years ago. Today, my name is on the office door next to hers, not because she gave it to me, but because we built something together that could hold weight. The system we redesigned hasn't failed once. The company didn't just survive. It became stronger. More honest. More careful. Because we learned what happens when you ignore the truth. And what happens when you don't. Sometimes people ask me what really changed that night. Was it the flood? The investigation? The people who fell? No. It was simpler than that. A woman who had every reason to trust the system, chose instead to trust the right person. And a man who spent years being ignored. Chose not to stay silent. Because the strongest things in this world. A building. A company. A life. Aren't built by one person. They're built when two people decide. To stand on the truth. And not move. Thanks for watching. If this story meant something to you, please like and subscribe for more unforgettable stories about love, resilience, and second chances.